Hey, legends, welcome back to the Self Reclamation series with me, Jess Frost. And this is part two, all about feeling energized. We're going to energize together and we're going to be talking a lot about how do we slow the fuck down? How do we keep healing the nervous system to create the capacity to step into our truest, most authentic identity and hold those amazing manifestations that we're calling in? Okay, so grab your pen and paper and let's get stuck in. I'm not going to be just talking at you this whole time. I know the last one was quite a lot of information. We're going to end with like a 15-minute practice with this one. So you'll get to kind of actually experience what I'm talking about. Okay. So, what did we look at last time? We looked at ego, which is the kind of trauma identity and the identity that is formed as a result of our environment and experiences, versus self with a capital S, which is that beautiful, authentic, grounded, calm, compassionate, curious, courageous, confident you that can observe what's happening within your system, observe your behavior, and can then make more aligned choices. That's what we're talking about. Not being perfect, but being able to choose differently and not live a life that's defined by our complex trauma. We looked at dysfunctional family roles and rules. We looked at the protector parts that form as a result of that trauma and that nasty, horrible, disgusting introject that lives inside some of us who've experienced narcissistic abuse. This horrible, dark energy that wants to keep us trapped in that abuse. We looked at the script that we are running on, right? This program that's been conditioned. And we looked at the pros and cons of labels and how that impacts our sense of self. We looked at our emotional systems and where we can kind of fall into one or the other, leading to burnout or leading to stuckness. We looked at Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory. So we looked at the nervous system. We're going to talk about that again today. And that ladder of how do we move from feeling kind of very disassociated, depressed, stuck to a more social, kind of green, connected sense of self. We looked at external conditioning factors like the patriarchy, capitalism, white supremacy. And we looked at our subconscious chain reactions. So we actually mapped out what it could look like in terms of what's actually driving our behavior and how do we create change? How do we create little circuit breakers so we are responding to life and not just reacting as a result of our trauma? Okay. So, with everything in mind from the first session, this is like just some of the ways that experiencing dysfunction, complex trauma can really impact us. Okay, so just a bit of a recap on some of the stuff we talked about, but it will also link to the work we're going to do today. So, we tend to have a fear default. I'm pretty sure that everyone watching this will feel like they have a fear-based bias to life. That there's this like undertone of fear, terror, and anxiety that definitely kind of drives our system when we grow up with alcoholic parents and or narcissistic parents. Our amygdala stays in constant high alert, and it's why a lot of us feel like we are constantly hypervigilant. We can see things that maybe a lot of people don't see. We can sense things coming that other people can't see, which can be a superpower. Don't get me wrong. But it can be exhausting being that hypervigilant and always trying to predict what's going to happen and put things in place to make sure that we are safe. It's exhausting. The experience that we talked about in session one can hugely impact our attachment style and our relations. It will have an undertone and it will have an impact on every single relationship, whether it's a work-based relationship, whether it's a friendship, or whether it's a romantic relationship. We can get trapped in codependency, enmeshment, or we can repeat cycles of narcissistic abuse and we can actually find ourselves repeating the same kind of relationships that we had growing up. We can get trapped, like we've talked about, with the nervous system, with polyvagal theory, we can get trapped in trauma responses, whether it's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Okay. We can get trapped in emotional systems, whether it's drive, threat, drive, threat. And those of us who have experienced complex trauma and dysfunction, and everyone actually in this world right now we know, we can see that it's been heavily led by narcissism. We have a mind, body, soul disconnection. We are kept up in our heads. And if that is largely fear based, we're running on fear, right? And that feeds the system, it feeds the machine. They literally harvest on our fear. So it's this horrible loop that we're trapped in with the wider systems as well. And from our soul's perspective, like when we journey back to our soul, which is a big part of the work I do as well with my clients, that is about remembrance from a higher level, from a deeper level. And this is all the beauty and opportunity that we have when we are on our healing and growth journey. We can connect back with the body. We can descend back into our body that we've been so disassociated from. And we can remember our soul and reconnect with our soul as well. Complex trauma survivors tend to blur timelines, right? When we are fully in self, we are present. I'm just going to pause here. I want you to notice your bum on your seat. Notice the chair you're sat on or the floor. Notice your feet attaching to the floor. Notice the sounds in your space. We're in this present moment. There is only now. We only have now. But complex trauma survivors find they're in the past a lot, and their bodies in the past a lot, their minds in the past, or they're going into the future. Oh my God, how do I control the future? How do I make sure this doesn't happen? Oh my God, what's going to happen to this? Right? And we rarely find the safety to be in the now. That is what we're going to look at today. For complex trauma survivors, we have black and white thinking. It's like 0 to 100. There's no grey, there's no logic, and there's very little clarity. We tend to react, not respond, like we looked at with that whole kind of chain reaction from stress. We tend to live in deep shame. Shame tends to be one of the biggest drivers of our behaviour and our thoughts, our feelings, and our physiological body. Okay. And to deal with that shame that we are constantly holding within ourselves, we have to create a false sense of self. And that's where those protector parts comes in. Okay. So we create like this trauma fueled, shame fueled identity, which isn't actually a reflection of who we really are at soul level. And our emotions don't get to complete. So, you know, like animals in the wild, when they are hunted, right, and they're in that intense trauma and stress, when they manage to escape, they shake. You'll notice like animals shaking it out, right? That's deliberate. That's the body actually dealing with the trauma and stress in a very, very healthy way. But what have we done over the thousands of years as humans? We have learned to push that all down, okay? So we don't somatically release in the moment. We hold it all in. And that emotional reaction, that doesn't get to complete like it would do an animal. So it gets trapped in the same way that memories don't get filed properly. So we can have flashbacks, we can have sleepless nights, insomnia, right? Because the whole experience didn't get to have its kind of circle completion. And this is what we're going to be looking at today. So all these different things are the responses to that complex trauma. And all of these things don't align with self. They don't align with living the most kind of authentic, self-led, aligned life. And this is what we're going to work with today. So we're going to work more with the kind of energy in the terms of everything is energy. We are all energy, but we're going to look at the nervous system. How do we continue that healing process so we can build and expand capacity within us? At the moment, it's just like chaos. We want to expand, create space, Our nervous system needs to create space and to be able to hold more. Okay. So take a breath. Okay. So, how do we move this forward? Some of you may have been in intense trauma therapy already. Some of you may have done some of this work, which is amazing, right? A lot of people start in therapy when they've gone through complex trauma and they recognize it's impacting their life. Now, talk therapy, I'm not blasting it. For me, it was a tiny, tiny, tiny element. It scratched the surface. The danger for me with just doing talk therapy was that my protector parts were able to run the show. They were able to just stay up here. I wasn't in my emotion, I wasn't in my body, and I would just kind of go along with it and say what I thought I needed to say. I performed my way through therapy, right? A lot of people do. That's very, very, very normal. But there's other ways. There's like, I find a more intricative, if I've said that right, yeah, way is more helpful for me. It might be for you. Everyone's different. Play around, experiment, see what works for you, and especially do your use your discernment when choosing practitioners that you partner with. Okay, it's really important that you feel safe enough to work with certain people and to be in certain spaces and to do certain tools. Why perimenopause is perimenopausing today. Bear with me, team. So we've got the processing of the past, which is what I was mentioning there with kind of trauma therapy, complex trauma therapy, whether you're working with a cognitive behavioral therapist that's helping with the kind of mindset side of things, or whether you're working with someone that's trauma trained. I do recommend working with a trauma trained specialist for this. But being able to process those past experiences, make more sense of them, is really important. Now, something that you might want to consider is IFS therapy, which is internal family systems therapy, which will work with the different protector parts of you and your more exiled and wounded younger parts of you. EMDR could be really, really, really powerful for you, especially with the kind of flashbacks and difficult memories. That's going to be really powerful. And you can do not just kind of eye movement, you can do somatic EMDR as well. But yeah, processing of the past is going to be very, very, very important. Also, things like mindset work and working with the subconscious rewiring. It's a big part of what I do with my clients. So they've processed the past in therapy, but they're finding themselves still looping in old belief systems and old programming. So that's what the mindset work and the subconscious work can do, whether it's NLP, hypnosis, EFT. You want to be taking more aligned and embodied action. And that's kind of further down the line once you've done some of this other stuff. But don't underestimate the power of new action to reset some old computer programming within you. Okay. Energy alignment work. I'm a big, big fan of energy work. So there's a multitude of ways that you can do this. I will detail some of them later on in the slides. But when I talk about energy alignment, I mean, I work with my clients with the chakra system. There's many more chakras than the detailed 7 that a lot of people talk about. I work with the 7 chakra energy centers with my program Courageous Confidence, where we work from the root chakra all the way up to the crown chakra. And the reason we do this and why it's really important is our complex trauma disrupts our energy centers. And a lot of the energy centers are kind of linked with our biggest survival wounds. So when you can work with the subconscious and work with the energy centers, you're going to create more energetic alignment within you. That's going to create more self-led life. That's going to create more flow rather than this like tight gripping white knuckling of life. I'm a big, 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 big fan of cleansing and protecting my energy. Now, I'm an empath. I'm a highly sensitive person. I only have to go into the Freddy supermarket and I've picked up on multiple people's energy. And I used to really struggle with differentiating whose was my energy and what was my energy and what was someone else's energy. Okay. So I use different cleansing methods like saging to be able to kind of clear out what isn't mine and come back to my own body, come back to my own energy. I'm a big fan of protecting my energy after being the targets to a lot of narcissistic, abusive people. So I do different protection methods and I share that within my programs as well that can help me feel more powerful and more protected from energy vampires and very, very dark entities. So yeah, energy is very, very important with this work. Some call it woo. We are all energy. I stand on that. I will die on that hill. So yeah, energy is really, really important. Emotional work, right? Remember the rules of part one. Don't talk, don't feel, don't trust. We've been taught not to feel. Emotion is energy, emotion is meant to flow through you, right? So doing the emotional work, finding the safe enough spaces for you to finally connect with your emotions, to understand them, to identify them, to contain them, to release them, to transmute this energy. This is where we go from our pain to power, right? For a lot of us, we are just running on pain, running on suffering, running on betrayal, right? And actually, when we do the emotional work, we can be with that fucking pain. We can see it. We can stare it in the eyes and we can transmute it into this force that's going to help us with the work we do in the world. It's really powerful. And you can learn to be with your emotions. Often we get taught which ones we are safe with and which ones we aren't. So some people feel safe with anger and not sadness, and others vice versa. Whereas the work I do with people and the work I had to do with myself was to find the safety to be with all of it. All of it is beautiful. None of it is bad, right? Everything is a messenger. And this is what we get to do, is we get to heal our emotional experiences as well. Our emotions are incredible drivers. When we're actually in our present emotions, we can use that to fuel forward momentum as well. Now, I'm going to get onto this, but we need to do somatic nervous system healing. And we need to work with the vagus nerve. Complex trauma, dysfunction damages the highway to our optimal functioning. So we need to repair. So then again, we can hold this capacity. We can be in the moment without being living in the moment through the lens of the past, if that makes sense, right? It's really important. Some of you might have done inner child work. Again, I love it when I work with people that have already done some healing and inner child work. That's really powerful because we can build on that. Because what we're going to do is we're going to continue parenting those inner children. We're going to be that coach and that guidance and that mentor to that inner teenager, right? We're going to be what we weren't given growing up. So we're going to continue on that kind of journey of being that nurturing, guiding, protective energy for those parts of us that live inside of us. And most importantly, learn to slow the fuck down. Take a breath with me. If you're like me, your body and mind will have been addicted to chaos. Now, your mind might reject that, but most of us who've grown up in chaotic environments, abusive environments, are addicted to chaos. We need to recover from that addiction. Our parts and our psyche can be really sneaky. Even when we want calm, we say we want peace and we want calm, we want abundance. And our parts are like, no chance. Watch me. Right? And they will get involved in the gossip. They'll get involved in the drama. They'll try and solve the crisis that isn't theirs. Right? We need to learn to calm down. Now, all the things that you've noticed in part one and up until now in yourself, we cannot make changes until we slow down. We can't change what we're not aware of. You can't notice things when you're running on fumes and you're running on chaos. You notice things compassionately. You start being that self-led observer when you slow down. I literally moved from busy cities to the middle of bumblefuck in a tiny cottage, right? It's so quiet here that I thought I was ready for this life. My body, I was like, yeah, I'm done. I've done so much work. And I moved to Bumblefuck. And I literally look out on like wildflowers and butterflies. And I'm 2 minutes from the hills and the water. And I had to still work really hard to be comfortable with this. My body was like, and my mind was like, okay, cool. When's the chaos kicking off? Right? This is what I'm talking about. It takes practice. This isn't going to happen overnight. You are building a new muscle for calm. We have to consistently show our parts and our body and our nervous system that we are safe enough in this new normal. And that takes practice. That takes effort. That takes consciousness. It takes presence. So even when I'm sat here looking outside, I can be like, we deserve this. I'm safe. And noticing my feet on the floor, noticing my bum on the seat, right? Keep bringing myself back to now. And this is what we're doing when we're healing the effects of living on trauma autopilot. That's what we're doing. We're going to continue healing the nervous system with practices, with presence, and with new action. Okay? That is how we're expanding. That is how we're creating space. That is who we're stepping into, who the fuck we really are. Let me just take a swig of my lovely calming tea. I want you to receive this. You're a beautiful orchid. Why do I love orchids? Because when you are a highly sensitive soul, empath, when you have experienced the effects of complex trauma, you need a different type of care than a normal plant. You need real, tender, intentional, conscious care to thrive. You need a certain environment to thrive. Now, I want you to take from this what you will. But when you think about what you need from a self-care perspective, I really want you to start thinking of yourself as an orchid. I'm not talking about an odd spa day or an odd bubble bath, right? I'm talking about nervous system level care. Because you have a big job in terms of coming back to you and presence. It's time to start seeing yourself as that beautiful orchid that is different in a beautiful way, and you need to treat yourself as so. So I'm going to look at the vagus nerve with you now. So we talked about the polyvagal theory of the nervous system and the ladder, right? Okay, so moving from the red into the yellow, which is like the revving of the engine, up into the green, which is when you feel in self and all connected, right? That's really, really fucking hard when your vagus nerve is fried. The vagus nerve runs all the way down the body, right? All these little fibers running down the body, connecting to all of your all of your optimal functioning, right? Your lungs, your heart, your liver, your stomach, your intestines, your reproductive organs, right? It links to the parasympathetic nervous system. So the parasympathetic nervous system is the calming, it's the slowing down, it's the blue of the emotional systems, okay? And when we experience the complex trauma and complex PTSD is not just like PTSD, which is a one-off incident, which is really traumatic. Complex PTSD and when our nervous system and our vagus nerve is fried is when we are subjected to danger on a repetitive basis. Like when we were in childhood environments that we couldn't escape, when we have this same repeated experience over and over and over and over again. That's what we're dealing with here. And the vagus nerve gets damaged, and therefore it will affect us in loads of different ways. For me, I've really struggled with my menstrual cycles. I really struggle with autoimmune. I really struggle with IBS. I have to work really hard with trying to heal from all of these different things. But this really set something new off for me in terms of that healing, because I think it can be easy to get sucked into the capitalistic wellness space. Buy this, this will sort this, buy this, this will sort this, get all these different supplements, right? I could have a million different fucking supplements and I would feel the same, right? The vagus nerve is really powerful because it's actually dealing with so many different things. And you can buy all of the things that these wellness influencers show you, but actually, if you're not working with the nervous system, you're not working with the vagus nerve, is it helping? I don't know. So yeah, it's the highway to everything, and it's linked to our rest and digest, which again is going to lead to good sleep, good digestion. And the gut is linked to so much of our holistic health. When our gut's off, it literally has an impact on everything. So I'm going to ask you to do a vagus nerve reset with me, and some really simple tools that you can do every single day. So I want you to sit upright with me, and I want you to look forward, and I want you to stay remaining looking forward with your face facing forward, okay? And I want you to place your right hand on the top of your head on the crown. And I want you to tilt your head, looking forward still, to the right until you feel like a little stretch on the neck. And then I want you to look up. So only moving your eyes, face facing forwards, only move your eyes up to the top left of your room. Now you might hear a gurgle in your tummy, you might yawn, you might hiccup, or just a lovely yawn. Keep looking up there until you feel that release in terms of a yawn or a gurgle. And then I want you to take a deep breath in and breathe out as you bring your eyes back to center. Bring your head back to center. Switch hands. Tilt your head to the left, facing forward. Feel that stretch. Move your eyes to the top right. Feel that release. Hold it there. And then take a deep breath in. Bring your eyes to center. Your head to center. Welcome back. You might feel a little bit sleepy after those exercises. Good. That's the point. Those little vagus nerve resets, those little exercises for the vagus nerve are a really powerful way of winking to the nervous system that you are safe. You're safe to slow down. Really good for when you're about to close down the laptop after work, or you get in the car to come back home, or when you're about to settle down for your evening or go to sleep. Actually think about it. Don't do it in the car. No, don't do it in the car. But because it makes you feel like, do it when you're home. Do it when you're home. Do it when you've parked up. But yeah, when you're about to, slow down for your evening, it's just a really beautiful way of being like, I'm safe here. I'm safe in this moment. So when you're running on cortisol, when your body's so used to running on fumes, it will feel like, oh. And actually, a lot of people, when they go on their healing journey, they start to panic a little bit when they start to feel that. You will feel really tired at times. You will feel like almost drained at times. Don't worry, don't panic. It's just your body is changing. Your body is getting more accustomed to the lack of cortisol, right? If you find yourself cutting things out like alcohol and caffeine as well, like you'll find this natural tiredness. That is actually a very normal feeling. And what happens for me is that like I have this like burst at the end of my working day, and I have this very old conditioned pattern of like, cool, finished work, what am I going to do? And then like if I just sit with it, I feel that natural tiredness come back in, and I'm like, oh, I'm actually ready to get into bed with a cup of tea. And yeah, it's just a really beautiful response to this work. So if you do start feeling that over time, like don't panic. That is really normal, okay? You're going to start to feel quite naturally sleepy. That's a really good thing. Your body is just learning to listen to what's really going on. Listen to your body, listen to your needs, and to be able to fill your cup up accordingly. So, power of mindfulness. That's why I love having this window here where I can see these wildflowers. I can just see two butterflies dancing around there. I used to poo poo mindfulness. Sorry, any mindfulness teachers that might be watching this. I absolutely slated it. I was like, what a load of bullshit. I haven't got time for that. Yeah, I was a mindfulness teacher's worst nightmare for a long time. But actually, what I've realized is there is so much power to mindfulness. Mindfulness has changed my nervous system, right? Consciously choosing to observe. Oh, this is the most beautiful butterfly there. Choosing to observe what's around me. So noticing the colours, the textures, the shapes, the objects. And I encourage you to do this with me right now, even just in your space. Notice the colours, the textures, the shapes. What can you smell? What can you taste? What can you hear? I can hear some airplanes going over and my bathroom door tapping in the wind. But yeah, do it. Tune into your environment. I used to listen to my headphones and a podcast or music every single time I went walking. Every single time. I would run with music on. Now my rule is, I mean, running's different. I literally can't run if I haven't got music on. But walking, I deliberately do it. A, with no phone, and B, nothing to distract me. I don't have my headphones in. Why? Because I deliberately do it for this exact reason. I will sit on various benches and I will notice. I will go down to the little water near me where there's all the beautiful birds, the ducks. I'll feed the ducks and I will sit on my favourite bench and I'll feel the sun on my skin. Or I'll look at the rain clouds or I'll feel the rain on my skin and I will notice everything. We did it earlier, but just noticing your bum on the seat, noticing your body connected to a surface, noticing your feet on the floor, noticing your breath. And I might tap or do a butterfly tapping on my chest and just remind myself I'm here in this moment. I'm safe in this moment. And this is a really beautiful point to anchor into gratitude as well. So I'll be like, I'm so grateful for nature. I'm so grateful for that beautiful butterfly. I'm so grateful for this warm cup of tea. I'm so grateful for this peace and quiet. I'm grateful for this moment connecting with you. There's something really beautiful about mindfulness. So if there's a part of you, right, a protector part that's like, ugh, don't like it. Why might they be saying that? What are they protecting you from? Because for those parts of you, calm is unsafe. Peace is unsafe. For those little parts of you, right, who had to be really hyper vigilant growing up, They're like, whoa, 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 don't take your eye off the ball. Don't take your foot off the gas. Something bad's going to happen. You need to be ready. But this is where you're going to reparent that part of you, and you're going to show them over time and repeated behavior that they're safe in the present moment. They're safe in this moment. Same goes for meditation. I used to be like, what a crock of shit. I will not meditate. I can't meditate. Right? I had a protector part protecting me from it. Why? Because my mind is so busy. I have a fucking horrible introject that thankfully has fucked off way more than it used to, because I just don't stand for it anymore. That horrible narcissistic energy that used to hound me. I didn't want to sit with my feelings. I didn't want to sit with my shame. I didn't want to sit with that introject's voice. I didn't want to sit with the busyness of my parts. So I fought it, and I was like, I just don't like meditation. That's what I told myself. That was a core belief. Oh, I don't like meditation. It doesn't work for me. And I used to hear that from a lot of my mentors as well. And it really had an impact on me, that I just thought, I can't do it. It's not helpful. But actually, it's changed my life. And I meditate every day now. Every day. Not for calm and quiet, but because I get to be the compassionate observer. So I get to sit there and I get to tune inwards and see what's going on for me that day. Right? I get to hear how busy my thoughts are. I get to see what kind of energy I'm in. I get to feel how exhausted I am or how full my cup is. And I get to give myself what I need accordingly. I get to tend to those parts that need some nurturance and guidance and protection. I basically get to lead that day in a far more aligned way than if I just went about my day. So it's really super helpful tool for me to go in here, see what's really going on, and then lead accordingly. Not to change anything, not to be toxic positive, none of that bullshit, but just so I can lead like I would do a parent attuned to my children. That's what it is for me. It means myself can come on in, because once I've like sat there long enough, the noise quietens down, and then that's when I connect to that self with an S. And also, you know, I am proudly spiritual. That is when I can connect with my higher self, my spirit team. Okay. It's really powerful for me to come back to my power, to come back to that fire within me, come back to that love and that fierce love that I want to lead with. That's why it's fucking powerful. Ah, the breath. I fucking love the breath. So, your breath, your emotions, together, so powerful. And your emotions are just energy in motion, designed to flow through us. But yeah, we got caught to push that down. Do not feel, it's not safe. And we create all this stagnancy, all this reaction, because we're not in flow. We don't just let emotion come and leave, come and leave. It takes about 90 seconds for emotion to complete. But so many of us, we feel it, especially shame. And then we're in default mode. But actually, we need to just be. When you can just let those waves crash, even on the days of grief, of betrayal, of deep sadness, of rage, if you can look it in the eye, if you can feel it and be with it, oh my God, it's your superpower. And it's why breath work for me, and I'm going to talk about all these different tools, but why breath work for me is one of the most powerful ways. When I meditate or I connect with the breath, it's like an invitation for that flow to take place. And there's loads of different types of breath work you can do. I do calming breath work, or I'm trained in conscious connected breath work, which is like where if you are someone that avoids your feelings, it's a very, very, very powerful way for your body to just take over and for it to release when it needs to release. I'll put in the show notes links of how you can do some breath work with us. But yeah, the breath is super powerful. It means you're just guiding, you're just letting this flow take place. Really, really, really powerful. But yeah, your emotion is energy in motion. It's not to be feared. And when you can actually build the resilience to be with your feelings, you can hone that emotional power, and it will help drive your self-leadership as well. So here's some tools that you might want to consider. You might already be doing some of this stuff. There's going to be loads outside of this as well that you know or you'll discover. This is your self-led discovery. Find the things that work for you. Sack off the things that don't, right? This is not me telling you as a fucking guru what you should be doing. But these are just some of the things that have helped me get from like, enmeshed codependency abuse to self-led leadership and being the leader of my life. So NLP and hypnotherapy was super helpful for me to like work with that mental programmed computer. I was able to shift really stagnant, horrible, limiting beliefs. And the hypnotherapy again was a really beautiful way for me to like cement some of my new belief system. A really powerful way to release and recode, release and recode. Parts work, oh my God. So I have an IFS therapist and coach and supervision for my work, which is so super powerful for me to work with those protector parts of me that are still here, that still try and take the wheel. They can build trust with me and they can start to unburden some of that shit that they've been carrying for a long time. And as they trust me, they start to step back so then I can lead more with self. It's been super powerful for me to build my connection with one of my strongest parts, which is Shelby. She's the teenager within me that, gosh, she is like, when I work with Shelby, we're a dream team because she's got such strong discernment. She can see the red flags a mile off. She knows when to not trust people, but she can keep me quite isolated. She can keep me mistrusting. She can keep me quite hypervigilant. So by working with these parts, I'm able to like nurture them and guide them and coach them rather than let them run the show. So I highly recommend checking out IFS specialists near you. To work with and start integrating you into more of a whole sense of self. EMDR I mentioned as well, really helpful. A lot of them use the eye movement and the lights to process old memories. There's somatic EMDR, which I highly recommend as well. I'm a huge fan of tapping, so I do emotional freedom technique tapping. That really works with your energy centers, a bit like the acupuncture points, to release limiting beliefs and again rewire that subconscious as well as releasing trapped emotion. So it combines the two. It's really powerful way of like coming back to alignment and rewiring your subconscious. Somatic movement. I'm going to put a link to someone that I'm affiliated with. You can get 10% off with my link, but she does loads of 20% off periods as well. So check out her. She's amazing, the Workout Witch. There's loads of different ways that you can do this as well, but some slow somatic movement will help again release trapped emotion and heal the vagus nerve and the nervous system. You might want to do more mindfulness and meditation, and there's loads out there in terms of meditations. I'm a fan of Insight Timer. I listen to stuff going to sleep. I've created loads of my own meditations. Like, check out and find people whose voice doesn't really trigger you. I give it 10 seconds and I'm like, nah, can't listen to that. Find people that align with you, that really align with your soul, that make you feel safe. Okay. Breath work. Like I was saying, there's loads of different breath works out there, from very slow healing breath works to conscious connected breath works, transformational breath works that are designed to take you into a different state. Check them all out. Read the disclaimers for health stuff, but check them out and give them a go, right? They can be really helpful for nervous system regulation, but also transformation and letting go of some of the baggage that you are holding on to. I will again put links on how you can do some of that with us. Like with the somatics, like the dancing, don't underestimate the power of moving the body in whatever way it is for you. Dancing, shaking is really powerful. Yoga, boxing to get out the frustration and the anger and the rage that will come up with your healing journey. Find ways that you can like rage it out. Get in a rage room, throw some fucking axes. I literally go into fields and scream because I'm in a tiny cottage and everyone can fucking hear me. So I go into fields and I throw sticks and I scream. Find whatever works for you, okay? There's sound healing. People will go to sound baths. I love listening to certain frequencies for certain chakras. whatever, you've loads on YouTube, go check it out. And you might do energy healing in person with people. So that might be Reiki. I used to love Qigong. I'm going to train in it at some point, but like I need to find a local practitioner that does it. That's a beautiful way again to move with your energy centers, acupuncture. There's so many more, but these are the types of things we're talking about. So especially if you've done your talk therapy, you've done your trauma healing therapy, but you're now ready for the next step to keep that expansion going, this is what we're talking about. So I want you to, in the journal prompts, in the notes, really think about what can you start integrating. Don't say to yourself, you're going to fucking do all of it and then overwhelm your nervous system and leave it all. What one are you going to try and integrate? What one are you going to do more of? What one have you already been doing but let slip? So I want you to start embedding some of these rituals and practices into your routine. Even if it is, I am going to go out on my lunch break and sit on a bench and notice. Simple. I'm going to walk home and I'm going to notice everything. I'm not going to wear my headphones. Like even that is really powerful. So think about, what are you going to start embedding? What are you going to bring back into your life? What needs to happen in your environment to make it easier for you to do that? All these things are so important. And protecting your energy, and we're going to be looking at that in Empower as well. Protecting your energy is vital. Protect your energy like it's gold, because it bloody is. You are gold. You've been so used to giving, this like open door. Like, no, this, once you especially start aligning, healing, you need to protect your body and your energy like it's fucking gold. And we're going to, I'll talk about in the next one ways that you can do that. But I also want to say, when it comes to work, that energy work with other people, be very, very, very discerning. There are, sadly, a lot of spiritual narcissists. There are a lot of healing narcissists. There are a lot of therapist narcissists, coaching narcissists out in the field. A lot of people that do the work so they can siphon from you, not to help you access your power. So I personally, I have to be very, very, very discerning, very careful who I hire, what spaces I join, who's in those spaces. I will not just let any fucker do Reiki on me. I do not want a narcissist doing work on my energy centers. This exists. This is real. I'm saying this not to scare you, but so you can be very mindful that if you were like me, I used to be so naive. I saw the best in everyone. I was like, yay, cool, healing. And then I went into all these fucking spaces and I was like, holy shit, this person is really, really not safe. Be careful out there. There's a lot of shit. Do your experimenting, do your research, check out their reviews. Like, yeah, be really careful, protect that energy. And I'll talk about ways that you can do that practically in the next one in your house, so you can feel like your energy is more cleansed and protected. Be careful what you're absorbing. Like I just said then, be careful of the people whose stuff you're absorbing, whose energy you're absorbing. There's some dark, toxic, siphoning, vampire-like narcissistic energy out there. Be careful. But be really careful about what foods are you eating? What drinks are you drinking? How much water are you having or not having? What media are you looking at? The news every fucking day? That's literally like taking your energy in your cup from here to like zzz. Remember the propaganda. Remember that a lot of the shit you will see online is designed to create fear, because the powers that be siphon from it. They harvest our energy when we are in fear. Be careful about trusting everything that you read out there. A lot of it is designed to scare you, okay? Be careful of your social media. Like, have a clear out. Who are you following? Do they align with you anymore? Right? Do they light you up or do they drain you? Same with friends. Like, whose stuff are you still seeing and you're going, oh, fucking hell, she's annoying. Own it. What are you absorbing? What drama are you absorbing in your friendship groups? What workplace shit are you absorbing that you really could be detaching from with a more boundaried way of living? And whose projections of you are you absorbing, right? People are operating from their own model of the world. From everything we looked at in session one, they have their own shit going on. They're their own computer and they are operating from that. And they will have created a story about you, a narrative about you. So be careful about what they project onto you in terms of who you are. Is that helpful? So be careful when you're around family when they say certain things to you. Oh, God, brush that shit off. Be really, really, really mindful about what you're absorbing. So it's time to slow the fuck down. Practice every day slowing down 1%. Actively choose ways that are going to help heal your nervous system now. Build new practices into your day that are going to support this. Don't overwhelm yourself by saying we're going to fucking do all of them and let your perfectionist run the show. Absolutely not. But what's a 1% change? Even if that's just observing more. And be mindful about what you're absorbing out there, everywhere. Here, in your vessel and in your mind. Be really, really, really careful now. So I'll see you for part 3, Empower, where we bring all of this together with a real fierce, loving, powerful, boundary, badass energy for you to take forward. I'm going to bring all this to a completion. And I'm going to leave you with some tools that are going to continue this journey onwards because it doesn't end here. We don't just want to intellectualize it. We need to actually embody it now. We need to do the thing. So connect with me if we're not already. And I, my dear, are going to guide you into a little practice. So get yourself comfortable. Ideally seated if you can, but get a blanket if you want, like a candle. Nip to the loo. I'll give you a minute. Nip to the loo and you can get yourself settled. And I will be back in a minute for the practice. Hey, legends, let's do this. So get yourself comfortable sitting upright. Okay, doll. I want to begin just by bringing our attention to where you are in your space now. Notice your body connecting with the surface. Whether you're sat on the floor or on a chair or on the bed, just notice how your body's connecting with the surface right now. Are your feet connected to the floor? Notice your hands resting. You can even face your palms upwards if you want to. It's a nice sign of receiving and receiving this loving energy that we're going to radiate out in this practice. Just notice that you're here in this moment. There is nowhere else you need to be. Now, we're just going to open up the breath. And if you want to, you can place a hand on your heart space and a hand on your belly. Because as we breathe in through the nose, I want you to really practice breathing deep into the belly first. Okay? So as you take that deep breath in through the nose, breathe into the base of your spine, opening up the belly. Into your midsection. Breathing right the way up to your chest. A little bit more at the top. Hold there. And release the breath slowly through the mouth. Just letting everything relax. Your face relax. Your jaw relax. Your shoulders drop. And as you continue practicing those deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth, I want you to imagine you're bathing in the most beautiful light. This beautiful white light shining down over you. And as you take those deep breaths, you can imagine that light radiating all the way through you. And as you exhale, just imagine any dark, stagnant energy leaving you. You don't need to hold on to that anymore. Just let it all go. All that pressure, all that expectation, all that need to control. And as you breathe in, just let your heart space expand. Let your body expand. So many of us are living hunched over, constricted. Allow yourself to expand. Maybe you want to bring in some movement, moving your arms out, feeling how good it feels to expand in this moment. Breathing in, expanding the arms. And as you breathe out, push that energy forward, out, away. Breathing in, expand, expanding that heart space. And breathing out, pushing that energy away. Just taking a moment now just to notice how good that feels. How good it feels to expand your body yourself using the power of the breath. Feeling that light all around you. Reminding you of your power. Reminding you that when beneath all of the conditioning, all the ways that you've had to survive, there's this beautiful, sovereign self, this divine soul radiating within you. And you have the power to connect with it every single day. That it's time to come home to your true essence. Time to come back to who the fuck you really are and who you've always been. So just take a lovely, nice last breath in before we move into some gentle tapping. And this time release with a shake. Sigh. Shake it all out. Stretch it out. You're doing amazing, legend. Oh, it feels so good. Now, I'm going to start with the karate chop. Just follow me and just repeat what I do and say what I say with me, okay? Even though I find it hard to slow down, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I find it hard to slow down, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I find it hard to slow down, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. We're going to move in between the eyebrows now, either side or both. I'm safe to slow down now. Side of the eye. I deserve a life of peace, ease, and abundance. Under the eye. I'm not my trauma. I am so much more than that. Under the nose. I release the fear and I tune into fierce love and my beautiful heart. On the chin, I choose me now. I'm so deserving of the life I dream of. Under the collarbone, I choose to live more in the present moment. Under the arm, I choose to see the beauty in every single moment. Top of the head, and so it is. Okay, Dal, place hands on your heart. And take a deep breath in, breathing in that white light. And breathe out slowly through the mouth. And again, breathing in that light and those beautiful words. And release. And you can have your eyes closed or just hold a gentle gaze. And I want you just to transport yourself in your mind now to a safe place for you, or the safest place you can imagine. Maybe somewhere that you go to in real life, or somewhere that your imagination just creates right now in this moment. In this place, you feel so at home. You feel like you can take off all the masks and be you. Where you don't need to look over your shoulder. You just feel so held, safe and nurtured. You feel so connected to yourself and everyone else that might be there. A place where you can breathe. Finally. Just notice what you see there, what you hear there, what you smell, and what you feel as I read you some words. Your life will change when you choose change. When you choose to wake up a bit earlier. When you choose to build those new habits. When you choose to go to places that you've never been. Your life will change when you accept that it must change. And then slowly, deliberately, bravely, you walk hand in hand with change. You sign up for the classes, you send messages, you try new creative pursuits. You make tiny shifts every single day. You do what sometimes feels hard but also feels right. You make choices that lead you closer to your truest, most favourite version of yourself. And then, because you have shown life that you're open to it, more change will begin to unfold naturally. Good change. The kind you've been waiting for. The kind you will receive with an open and grateful heart. I invite you to take a deep breath in with me, beautiful soul, breathing in these words. And release. Knowing that you can come back to that beautiful place that you imagined at any time. And when you're ready, you can slowly wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, and come back into your space, noticing the colours, the textures, the sounds, the smells. Welcome back, doll. So beautiful to spend this space with you. And I will see you, hopefully, in part 3. But good luck with the journaling, get curious, and I'll see you soon.